The Great Ghanaian Wedding Mix-Up. Accra, the bustling capital of Ghana, is renowned for its vibrant culture, rich history, and elaborate weddings. On a bright Saturday morning, two families prepared for the day they'd been eagerly anticipating, their children's weddings. Unbeknownst to them, a catastrophic mix-up was about to unfold at the prestigious Golden Tulip Hotel. The Adu family, led by the meticulous Mr. Bafo Adu, was thrilled about the union of their daughter Gifty to the charismatic Ebenezer. Simultaneously, the Mensah family, spearheaded by the jovial Mr. Kojo Mensah, was excitedly preparing for their son Kofi to wed the beautiful Mimi Benson. Both weddings were set to take place at the same venue at the same time. It all began with a clerical error at the Golden Tulip's front desk. The bookings were mistakenly merged, leading to a colossal overlap of schedules, decorators, and eventually guests. The guests started arriving, dressed in their finest kente cloth and lace outfits. The lobby buzzed with excitement, and it wasn't long before the first signs of confusion appeared. The Adu family's guests, holding invitations for the Gifty and Ebenezer wedding, mingled with the Mensah's family guests, who were certain they were attending the Kofi and Mimi wedding. In the grand ballroom, two separate altars had been set up, each adorned with flowers and decor specific to the bride's tastes. A large banner hanging overhead boldly declared, "Congratulations, Gifty and Ebenezer," on one side, and "Best wishes, Kofi and Mimi," on the other. Mr. Adu, noticing the dual decorations, approached Mr. Mensah. "Excuse me, sir, but I believe there's been a mistake. This is the venue for my daughter Gifty's wedding." Mr. Mensah chuckled. "Ah, my friend, I think you are mistaken. This is clearly set up for my son Kofi's wedding." Before the discussion could escalate, the wedding planner, a flustered woman named Efriye, rushed in. "Gentlemen, there seems to be a slight misunderstanding. We have two weddings booked for today, and it looks like both parties are here." As the wedding planner tried to separate the guests into two groups, things grew increasingly chaotic. The two wedding parties were so intermingled that it became impossible to distinguish who belonged where. Aunties from both sides started chatting, long-lost cousins were reunited, and old-school friends reminisced, none realizing they were supposed to be at different weddings. The brides, Gifty and Mimi, both dressed in stunning traditional bridal gowns, were in their respective dressing rooms. Gifty, a stickler for detail, was reviewing her vows when her best friend burst in. "Gifty, there's a problem. I just saw some people setting up another altar in the hall." Gifty frowned. "What do you mean, another altar?" At the same moment, Mimi was having her makeup done when her cousin ran in. "Mimi, you won't believe this. There's another bride here." Mimi laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Very funny, Nana. Now let me finish my makeup." The time for the ceremony approached, and guests took their seats, unknowingly interspersed. The atmosphere was electric with excitement and confusion. As the music began, Gifty walked down the aisle on the left, while on the right, Kofi started his journey. Mr. Adu, giving away Gifty, suddenly found himself standing next to Mr. Benson, who was preparing to do the same for Mimi. Both fathers looked at each other in shock as the two processions converged at the center of the room. "Wait a minute," shouted Mr. Adu. "This is my daughter's wedding." Mr. Mensah, standing at the other side of the room, retorted, "No, this is my son's wedding." Guests gasped and murmured as the confusion hit its peak. The officiant, an elderly man named Reverend Tete, tried to restore order. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's all calm down. There has clearly been a mistake." In the midst of the chaos, Ebenezer, who was supposed to marry Gifty, and Kofi, who was set to wed Mimi, were pulled aside by their respective best men. Ebenezer's best man, Yao, pointed out, "Ebenezer, I think you're supposed to be on the other side." Kofi's best man, Joe, added, "Kofi, I think there's been a mix-up. We need to figure this out." Ebenezer, always the joker, grinned. "Well, this makes for an interesting wedding story, doesn't it?" Kofi laughed. "We'll laugh about this one day, but now let's sort this out." As the two grooms approached each other, they couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the situation. "Looks like we're getting married at the same time," Ebenezer joked. Gifty and Mimi, both equally determined to marry their fiancés without further delay, decided to take matters into their own hands. They met in a small room backstage, where they quickly bonded over the ridiculous situation. "Gifty, what if we just switch places and get this over with?" Mimi suggested with a mischievous glint in her eye. Gifty laughed. "You know what, Mimi? That might just work." The two brides swapped veils and bouquets, and with a final giggle walked back into the hall. The grooms, seeing their respective brides approach from unexpected directions, could barely contain their laughter. Just as the couples were about to exchange vows, a loud crash echoed through the hall. A large cake intended for the reception had toppled over. Guests shrieked as frosting flew in all directions, covering everyone in a sticky mess. In the midst of the chaos, Gifty's grandmother, Nana Ekuya, stood up. "Enough," she shouted. "This is not how we celebrate love in Ghana. Let's all calm down and enjoy this day." Her words had a magical effect. The guests quietened down and the staff quickly cleaned up the mess. Reverend Tete cleared his throat. "Let us proceed with the ceremonies." The couples, now in their correct positions, finally began their vows. Gifty looked into Ebenezer's eyes and spoke from her heart. "Ebenezer, today we start a journey together. Despite the chaos, I know we're meant to be." Ebenezer grinned. "Gifty, with you by my side, everything is an adventure. I love you." On the other side, Mimi smiled at Kofi. "Kofi, this day may be chaotic, but it's also perfect because I'm marrying you." Kofi squeezed her hand. "Mimi, no matter what happens, I promise to always stand by you." Just as the ceremonies were about to conclude, the doors burst open and a group of tourists accidentally wandered in. They looked around, bewildered by the scene before them. One of them, a big tall man with a camera, exclaimed, "This is amazing! A real Ghanaian wedding! Can we join?" The guests burst into laughter. Mr. Adu and Mr. Mensah, seeing the humor in the situation, nodded. "Why not? The more the merrier." The tourists joined in the festivities, adding to the eclectic mix of people and cultures. With the vows exchanged and the rings on their fingers, both couples were finally pronounced husband and wife. The room erupted in applause and cheers. As the couples kissed, fireworks lit up the hall and traditional drummers began to play. The guests, now all friends, regardless of which wedding they originally came for, danced and celebrated together. Gifty and Ebenezer, along with Kofi and Mimi, looked around at the joyous scene. "Well," Gifty said, "this is a wedding we'll never forget." Ebenezer laughed, "And we have quite the story to tell our kids." Mimi nodded. "Here's to the great Ghanaian wedding mix-up." Kofi raised a glass. "May our lives be as fun and unpredictable as today." As the reception began, the atmosphere was filled with laughter, music, dancing, lovely Ghanaian food like jollof, waakye, fried plantain, banku, omutuo, and fufu with peanut soup and palm nut soup. The two families had completely embraced the mix-up, and it seemed everyone was having the time of their lives. The brides and grooms changed into several different attires for the reception, adding to the vibrant and cultural mix. Gifty's auntie, Auntie Essie, who was known for her nosiness, sidled up to Mr. Mensah, So, how did you manage to book the Golden Tulip? I heard it's very expensive. Mr. Mensah chuckled. Well, we had a little help from my brother who works here, but clearly something got lost in translation. The DJ, seeing an opportunity to add to the humor, announced, Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the stars of the day, the wedding crashers turned honored guests. The tourists who had accidentally joined the wedding took to the dance floor, trying their best to keep up with the traditional dance moves. The crowd roared with laughter and encouragement. In the midst of the dancing, a new problem arose. The wedding gifts had been mixed up too. Aunties and uncles scrambled to figure out which gift belonged to which couple. Gifty's younger brother, Bafo Jr., found himself holding a large box wrapped in gold paper. Gifty, this one has your name, but the card says, Congratulations, Kofi and Mimi as well. Gifty sighed. Just open it. At this point, let's just share everything. The box contained a beautiful set of kente cloth, a traditional gift. Gifty smiled and handed it to Mimi. Here, this would look lovely on you. Mimi laughed. Thanks, Gifty. Let's just consider this part of the bonding experience. As the night went on, the DJ proposed a dance-off between the two families. The Edu and the Mensah families took to the floor, each side trying to outdo the other with their best dance moves. Gifty's cousin Kwesi, known for his energetic Azonto moves, challenged Kofi's cousin Efia, who was an expert in the latest TikTok dances. The guests cheered as the two went head-to-head, each move more impressive than the last. In the end, it was declared a tie, much to the delight of everyone. The DJ played a mix of traditional and contemporary Ghanaian music, and the entire room joined in the celebration. Just when everyone thought the night couldn't get any more eventful, the power suddenly went out. Gasps and laughter filled the dark hall. Ebenezer, always ready with a joke, shouted, Looks like even the electricity is confused about which wedding to light up. Gifty grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. Let's not let this ruin our night. We have each other, and that's all that matters. The guests followed suit, turning on their phone flashlights, creating a beautiful sea of lights. The drummers continued to play, and the celebration resumed, now with an even more magical atmosphere. The next morning, as the sun rose over Accra, the Golden Tulip was a scene of quiet aftermath. The once bustling hall was now silent, save for a few hotel staff cleaning up. Gifty and Ebenezer, along with Kofi and Mimi, met for breakfast. They laughed and reminisced about the incredible day they had shared. Who would have thought our weddings would turn out like this, Mimi mused. Ebenezer grinned. It was chaotic, but it was perfect in its own way. Kofi nodded. We made new friends. Our families are closer, and we have a story that no one will ever forget. Gifty raised a glass of fresh orange juice to the great Ghanaian wedding mix-up. May our lives be filled with as much love and laughter as yesterday. They clinked glasses, knowing that despite the chaos, they had created memories that would last a lifetime. Years later, the story of the great Ghanaian wedding mix-up had become legendary. It was told at family gatherings, shared with new friends, and even featured in a local magazine. Gifty and Ebenezer, along with Kofi and Mimi, often found themselves laughing about the day. They had children of their own who loved hearing about the wild, wonderful wedding day their parents had shared. And so the tale of the great Ghanaian wedding mix-up lived on, a testament to the power of love, laughter, and the beauty of unexpected twists in life. The great Ghanaian wedding mix-up is a story that reminds us that even in the most chaotic of times, love and laughter can turn any situation into a cherished memory.